Welcome back to the PreVetted Podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary people and remarkable talent reshaping our world. Today, we are joined by Shreya Hegde, a senior product manager technical at Amazon with a track record leading B2B products launches and shaping teams in healthcare tech. She's an engineer graduate, a product school speaker, and a lean circle leader, passionate about building products that solves real problems. Shreya, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, tell us what sparked and how has your approach evolved since your first PM role?
The spark for me was realizing that technology decisions shape how people experience work, life in itself, often in invisible ways. Growing up, I remember reading comic books where there were magical mirrors. You could see people from completely different part of the world. Back then, it felt like a fantasy, but today, the same idea is reality through technology. Early in my career, I was focused on shipping features, hitting deadlines, and execution. Over a period, my approach evolved to something deeper, making sure we are solving the right problem before we build anything. I would say that was my spark.
Right. I find interesting that the feature bloating. It's a real issue, right?
Yes.
That comes from a real, real genuine interest of building stuff, right? But
Yes.
but the consequences of that makes a bad experience, user experience, right? So evolving from just shipping features like if it was a sausage machine, let the more the better, to just a sniper style where you can just really understand the user and being able to build exactly what they need and remove the clutter. That's a great evolution on understanding the PM role, right? The product manager role.
Correct. Today, we think in systems, but like starting on when you're starting with your career, you think of products and features and how do I prove my execution. So we were measuring different things back then and measuring real outcomes as we experience, and not just launch is how we kind of pivot or learn over a period of time. So that's how I would think of this.
Right. And how do you how have you evolved to understanding what the users need? How how your approach changed throughout your career?
Right. Understanding customer very deeply and having empathy. I mean, it's pretty much cliche now where everybody talks about how we understand customer. But when I started, I would go with the list checklist. Basically, okay, is this a problem for you? Is this a problem for you? Is this basically confirming my biases of what their problem is? uh, Over a period of time, what I have learned is like when you ask customer if this is a problem for you, they may say, yes, that is a problem for me, but it may not be the real problem. Uh, Understanding from them, letting them lead or observe and asking them the problem and studying their day in the life of a customer, that gives a better perspective when we are building it. We don't think from a product perspective, then we think of a system perspective, or how would a customer see this or use this in their day-to-day life. So that's the transition for me.
Interesting. Can you give us a quick tour of the companies you worked at and the key inflection points all throughout your career?
I started after my graduation from engineering. I started my career in software engineering in a company named CGI back in India. This was a Canadian software services company where I worked on ERP products in software engineering stream. Uh, moving countries and moving to a different stream of product management. Later on, I started working as a product manager in MedAssets, a healthcare startup, which is acquired now. Um, and in a fast moving environments where speed and ownership is pretty much everything. Then I moved on to another healthcare firm where we shipped a lot of B2B products for hospitals across the USA. Pretty much all the revenue cycle products on helping hospitals how to reduce their bad debts, uh, which has been acquired again. All the startups seem to acquire in healthcare. It's a small world, which kind of taught me discipline and that's a regulation forces or a compliance rigor, because we our products involved with a lot of patient data, the compliance and the regulatory acts, which we constantly had to study or work on. Uh, and then I moved to Amazon. Amazon was the inflection point where scale met complete accountability. Um, Decisions suddenly affected thousands of operators, stakeholders, and the monetary impact also was huge. And I learned how to design systems, not just ship products in that space.
Right, right. And the with the volume of users, then you have a high responsibility of steering the strategy of product, because the impact is much bigger.
Much bigger, yes.
And as you mentioned, the mistakes are much more expensive, right?
Yes.
Right. But when I moved from startups to enterprise, I had that same feeling of the weight of the decisions, right? Because every decision I was making would affect, one way or another, right? It was a bigger bet, right?
Right.
Yeah. Eventually, you kind of get used to that, but it still makes you think more decisions that you make before you actually execute, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I used to think that corporate was slower, and in a way it is, right? But it's slower because they take more. It takes more time to make decisions, right? To make the due diligence, to make sure that everything is is in the right direction.
Yes, yes. But surprisingly, Amazon is like the biggest startups I've ever seen. It's operate in a different speed and accountability and uh, keeping that customer trust and everything. It's amazing experience actually to work in this big tech yet have that speed and accountability and everything. It's a very different experience and a very challenging and a good one, I should say.
Amazing. So at nThrive, you help deliver a portfolio of B2B healthcare products, right?
Correct.
What's one launch story that taught you the most?
Story that taught me the most. Um, uh, yeah, like we launched a series of products. Oh yeah, I can think of this launch story, which was um, a price transparency product we built in response to the No Surprise Act. It's an executive order from a president in 2019. I think we started building in 2018, 2019. Uh, what made it especially challenging was the compliance. This wasn't just a checklist at the end that we need to look at, but it was something fundamentally shaped the product in itself. So we had to monitor this evolving regulations and translate this compliance language into a clear experiences and still deliver something that hospitals or clinics could actually operationalize. So the biggest lesson for me was that in regulated environments, especially like healthcare, where we deal with a lot of patient data, clients and product thinking, it cannot be sequential. It cannot go one after the other. They have to be deeply integrated from day one. So that experience still influences how I build today. When you treat constraints as design inputs rather than blockers, how we end up stronger and more trusted products that customers can use. So this was a challenging period as well as a totally new experience that I had. And dealing with a lot of hospitals, customers, subject matter expertise, and subject matter experts, and the compliance and the regulatory aspect of it. It was a very good experience, though. It was a project just before I joined Amazon.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
When you have a moving target, it's harder.
Yes,
And
yes,
and well, I always talk about knowing the path, right? I mean,
yes,
if you've done it before, you know the path. You just have to walk it, right? The golden path for Alice in no the Wizard of Oz, right?
yes, yeah.
It starts a little little brick, golden brick, and then it goes around and gets bigger. But you know, but when you don't have a fixed target and when you don't know the path, that level of uncertainty, it's really hard to operate on that, right?
Yeah.
Or easy to get frustrated, right, and not knowing where to go, right? Yeah, and I'm sure that experience, made you more resilient. Now that you work at Amazon, that experience helps a
Absolutely.
lot.
Absolutely. It was, since it was the executive order, all the hospitals and clinics across the USA had to be compliant by 2020 January. It was so close and it had to be done right and before we shipped the products to the hospitals. So it was a wonderful experience. And we kind of, as a company, as a team, we were one of those, I think, very few companies that who had the product ready for to ship it to hospitals. I think it was only two companies that had this product ready.
What mindset shift did you make moving from a smaller company environment to big tech?
The biggest shift for me was moving from execution to influencing without authority. In bigger companies, especially the tech companies, the alignment and the narrative clarity and trust matter as much as speed. I wouldn't say more than speed, but as much as speed. I also learned to think in multi-year horizons, not just tomorrow or like 2 months, but how does it impact in 3 years down the line or 5 years down the line, and how today's trade-off create or destroy future opportunities or optionalities.
Inside Amazon, what does being an SPM technical look like day to day?
It's a blend of deep problem framing, engineering design reviews, being in there, understanding the trade-offs that we have to make, the implications of decision one way or two-way doors, and having the stakeholder alignment and metric and impact inspections. So it's blend of all these. I spend a lot of time translating between operators, engineers, leaders, customers, ensuring we build the right system that actually make impact and we don't just ship products.
Right. And what is your favorite part of the work right now, and how do you defend time for it?
Do I defend time for it? My favorite part has always been solving very ambiguous, messy, and cross-functional problems. It's kind of a puzzle. I like the period where we do that deep dive to connect dots, put together how the problem is, and what are the number of solutions that we can come up with, because it's not just about one solution. So that's my favorite part, the pre-work before the actual work. Uh, I defend time by being explicit about my value. If I don't think deeply upfront, we pay for it later in rework, which we don't want to do. So the clarity compounds. So that's my go-to mantra when it comes to this.
Amazing. So you wrote about measurement, right?
Yeah.
What are the North Star metrics and counter metrics you rely on to avoid tunnel vision?
Again, North Star metrics are outcome-based. It depends on the company and the organization within the company and the type of product that I'm serving and the customer need and everything. So some are revenue generative product and some are productivity based. In general, I would keep business impact in mind and how happy our customers are.
I mean, I've seen a lot of teams using vanity metrics or sometimes metrics that are not focused on adding value to the user. Throughout the years, I've been working more on trying to be more focused on adding value to the user, right?
Right. So the way I think of it is in a pyramid structure, right? Think of it like we have, let's say we are working on some revenue generating product. We kind of know that, okay, what impacts the business and how does it make customers' life easy? So that's what the North Star metric is. And at the top of the pyramid, you have the business outcomes. And if you're talking about, okay, what is leading indicators to that? Those are I'm assuming that you're referring to that as vanity metrics. So that's how I would think. So which feature or what part of the workflow that leads to these indicators that impacts the business outcome? That's how I would think about it. And we have the true north for the product and the organization. It varies across, how the type of the product or the nature of the product for me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when I'm talking about vanity metrics, sometimes I remember this story about people measuring how many users they had signed up to the system, but that doesn't mean that they're using the system. They just sign up, right? And then they don't measure how many people they actually drops, right?
Right. Like there's a concept of user engagement and actual adoption.
Right.
They actually come to use your product to use it meaningfully, or are they just visiting sites? To me, it all leads to um, some type of internal clarification we can make on the product, but I wouldn't call it a tunnel vision. Again, it depends on the nature of the product, I guess. But I get what you're saying. I mean, those numbers should only be like guiding in a certain way, but the ultimate impact, it's not just metrics along with your instincts. Like they have this concept of some of the product gurus say, call it a product sense. They kind of have the instincts whether this will work or not. Metrics should be guiding, and data is pretty much, it tells how exactly you're working on a product, but it's not everything. There is also the instincts and go with the anecdotals as well, customer anecdotes as well. So as famously Jeff Bezos say that when there is data and when there is anecdotes, we go with the anecdotes.
How do you translate ambiguous business goals into shippable roadmap without losing customer truth?
I anchor on customer truth, starting with that, then decompose that ambiguity into testable bets. So roadmaps should express intent, outcome, and learning, not some false certainty.
Right. And then so you let the customer behavior validate your hypothesis, your tests, and then based on that, make a decision to move forward.
Yes, it starts and ends with customer for me. So all the features or the small bits of the product, it's tied to not the output, but the outcome and the learning, and what does it solve and how is it tied to a bigger goal that my customer or a business have.
What's an example where technical depth unlocked a better customer outcome than a purely market first plan?
one of the recent projects that I worked on, when spatial and operational complexity could not be abstracted away, the technical depth allowed us to model reality accurately that unlocked insights a market only lens that would miss.
Right. Because otherwise you are guessing
Yes.
than actually, having that's why I was talking about North Star metric, because for me North Star metric is related to this idea of, if I have a solid foundation with a deep technical knowledge, then I have a solid north that I can follow, right?
Correct. Because in this project, it was quite visible, because it was that the nature of the product was that way, where we cannot walk away with the abstract model.
Right. And I understand lean startup says, well, build as little as possible and, just validate little assumptions, but it's more of an exploratory process, right? But there are certain use cases where that not necessarily work, because you actually need a deep technical knowledge on what it needs to be built before actually building it, right?
Yep.
So you speak and mentor, right? What patterns do you see in product managers transitioning from small firms to big tech, and what is your top advice?
The pattern that I have seen, many underestimate influence and overestimate authority or the team size. So my personal advice is investing a lot in earning that trust from your stakeholders or customers or your leadership or people you work with, the technical teams, other product teams, and investing in data and the narrative and early on, so that execution automatically follows. That would be my advice.
What would you tell your younger self before your first PM role?
Don't rush to prove value. Build judgment. Your instincts get sharper when you listen longer, observe for more time. I should say that this is something that I'm still learning. The part of active listening, I'm still trying to get good at it, but one step at a time.
It's a learning process. I think we're getting better throughout the years. We're getting better and better. It's something that we need to keep practicing and keep doing it. And as you said, if we rush it, the outcome is worst. So,
Yes.
yeah. And it's one of the things I learned on the Lean Startup, this idea that I don't know if the author said it this way, probably I'm paraphrasing, but the smarter the people, the more assumptions they make, right? And the more, wrong they are, pretty much, right? Which is kind of what you're talking about, right? Because you want to move forward and you put your bias into rather than listening, right? And that's the hard part, right? Yeah. And on my personal experience, running this podcast allowed me to become a better listener, because it's about asking the right questions and truly understanding what the guests are talking about, and try to find the merit on on what they're bringing to the table. So it's active listening. It's a lot of follow-up questions. So you really have to be 100% into the conversation, right? Whereas on the work, I used to have that more. Now I'm trying to do less. Had this practice of multitasking, right? So when you're multitasking, you're not really listening. So the being able to be 100% focused on the conversation and just shut everything around you, right? The notification on the cell phone and everything, this format forces me to do that. But then when I'm doing business meetings or other type of meetings, then I am applying the same principles, and it had a significant impact on my productivity and my focus. So it's been very interesting. Yeah.
Nice. And this, thank you so much for your time. Actually, this is really amazing. The kind of work you're doing, and yeah, I not only get to speak, I get to hear your perspective also. And I've gone through your some of your previous podcasts. It's amazing what you're doing out there.
Shreya, thank you very much for joining us today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Federico. I enjoyed every bit of it.